Friends, good evening, and all the organizers and activists of AIDYO, as well as the supporting section, and all the other friends who have joined this webinar. I welcome you all, and I thank you all for having joined this webinar. And I also extend a warm welcome to all the respected panel of speakers who have consented to be with us in this evening's discussion on a very important topic. Friends, our country is going through a very tough time. On the one side, we have terrible pandemic of corona, COVID-19, which hit the country in January. And the other side, we have a terrible economic crisis. It has, it has spread all over, and it is creating havoc in the lives of the people. In this background, we are holding this webinar. Before I begin the webinar and introduce our panel of speakers, one of the very important friends, close friends of AIDYO and who has been associated with the DYO for a quite long time, she is from Telangana, Hyderabad, Dr. Harika. She would sing a song for us. On behalf of all of you, I request Ms. Harika to present a song.
Hi, good evening, friends. So today I'm going to sing a song called Bade Chal Sangrami Naujawan. बड़े चल संग्रामी नौजवान, बड़े चल संग्रामी मजदूर, हम में है शक्ति का खजाना, संग्राम हमारा हथियार. बड़े चल संग्रामी नौजवान, बड़े चल संग्रामी मजदूर, हम में है शक्ति का खजाना, संग्राम हमारा हथियार, संग्राम हमारा हथियार. जब तक जामे जा है, लड़ते रहेंगे हम शान से. जब तक जामे जा है, लड़ते रहेंगे हम शान से. शहीदों के नाम पे लिए है शपथ, आओ चले रचेंगे हम नया इतिहास. शहीदों के नाम पे लिए है शपथ, आओ चले रचेंगे हम नया इतिहास. बड़े चल संग्रामी नौजवान, बड़े चल संग्रामी मजदूर, हम में है शक्ति का खजाना, संग्राम हमारा हथियार, संग्राम हमारा हथियार. जुल्मों का राज ये खत्म कर, बनाना है हमें नई दुनिया. जुल्मों का राज ये खत्म कर, बनाना है हमें नई दुनिया. हर एक जुल्म को रोक लेंगे हम, आओ चले रचेंगे हम नया इतिहास. हर एक जुल्म को रोक लेंगे हम, आओ चले रचेंगे हम नया इतिहास. बड़े चल संग्रामी नौजवान, बड़े चल संग्रामी मजदूर, हम में है शक्ति का खजाना, संग्राम हमारा हथियार. बड़े चल संग्रामी नौजवान, बड़े चल संग्रामी मजदूर, हम में है शक्ति का खजाना, संग्राम हमारा हथियार, संग्राम हमारा हथियार, संग्राम हमारा हथियार. Thank you.
Thank you, Harika, for that wonderful song. It's a very inspiring one. Friends, today, as a matter of fact, from AIDYO, we thought of having a very important consultation with some of the eminent personalities in this country who have been following up, not only who have been leading movements, and also we've been inspiration for varieties of social causes in the country. So we thought of this webinar from that background. We have the title of this webinar as Unemployment, NRA and Curtailment of Democratic Rights in this country. Friends, as I was just mentioning some time back, I will just take briefly a few minutes. As I was mentioning sometime just now, this country is going through a very terrible situation right now. On the one side, there is COVID pandemic, which has hit and taken its own toll, and country is galloping towards 50 lakh cases and nearly a lakh dead. And this is the situation all over the country on the one side. On the other side, what we see is the economic crisis, which is also large on the country as a pandemic. And the worst hit in this scenario is the youth. In fact, every year, as you very well know, 1.3 crore youth get added to workforce, and there are not so many jobs being created. That is a terrible problem that we are facing. And this is not just because of COVID-19 pandemic. In fact, the governments of the day since independence have not addressed this problem, and it is increased and increased day by day. But this COVID has exposed it completely. What we see is the present government at the center. It assured in 2014 that there will be 2 crore jobs per year for the youngsters. In fact, that was one of the key points that garnered huge number of votes for the government. But what we see is something totally different. In every sector where there could be some employment, not only I'm not only talking of public sector and government jobs, even in the private sector, what we see is a terrible decline in the number of jobs being created. Take for example the first quarter, the reports have come out, which is shocking. In the first quarter of this year, FY 2020, 2020-21, in this year, what we see is only first 3 months, CMI data says that 2.1 crore jobs, salaried jobs have been lost. And given this situation, we thought that there shall be a powerful movement which expresses clearly, a collective voice is expressed so that it can reach the government for demanding a solution. We thought of initiating a movement. That's why this webinar is being held. We see on the one side there is loss of jobs and no recruitment. On the other side, we see where the jobs could have been created. The second biggest employer in the country is this MSME, where the jobs could have been created is not being created, what we see. Agricultural sector is also in terrible distress, which is rural crisis is terrible. In this background, we are holding this webinar, friends. So we requested many eminent people from all across the country to place their points of view to help us to understand, and not only that, to organize movement which will address this basic problem. That is point number one I would like to place to you. Then secondly, this whole issue of unemployment, which has taken this proportion, but the government is not only diverting the issue, attention of the people is also being distracted towards many non-issues. Take our mass media. Mass media is only taking up such issues which are all non-issues. It is not addressing the point of GDP, the problem of unemployment, problem of rural distress, problem of migrant laborers. It is not bothered about this. So we see that kind of a situation, friends. So there is a need for a national level movement which will involve the youth from across the country, and that's why we are having this webinar today. That is point number one. Secondly, this movement, in fact, we would like to take it as a pan-India movement involving many progressive, pro-people organizations, youth organizations, and give it a national shape. In fact, AIDYO has already begun taking up this issue and as sending appeals to many different youth organizations to invite to involve in this movement, so that we can get a very massive shape to the we can give a massive shape to this movement and take it forward. That is point number 2. For this reason, we have the panel of speakers here. We have Mr. Bimal Chatterjee, former Advocate General. I would like to briefly introduce our panel of speakers. We have Mr. Bimal Chatterjee, who is former Advocate General of West Bengal government, and we are having him in our webinar. He would be sharing his thoughts. We have Mr. Prashant Bhushan, and he requires no introduction, friends. You know him very well. He has been a crusader for free speech in the country, and he has taken all the pains to be here with us, and we are very thankful to him, and we will hear him in some time. And we will have another speaker from Kerala, a senior advocate, so practicing in Supreme Court, Mr. Kalishwaram Raj. He would be joining from Kerala into this webinar, and we would be very happy to have him here and listen to his point of view on our subject matter. And also we will have Mr. S.R. Hiremat. In fact, he has been a fighter against corruption, and all through his life he has fought for justice and righteousness, and we are very happy to have him here, and we will listen to him, his thoughts, and his direction and guidance is needed for this movement. We'll listen to him. And also we will have our national president, Ramanjanappa Aldalli. He would be joining us from Karnataka and addressing us to take this movement forward, and we will seek his guidance. And this particular panel of speakers whom we are going to listen to now will deliberate on 2 points for the benefit of our viewers as well as for the benefit of our panel of speakers. I would like to make this point. We will have 2 parts for the interview, friends. One part, we will listen to all the speakers in another few minutes time. Each speaker will take about 10 minutes time, and then they place their point of view. We will carefully listen to those points, and after that, once the speakers are complete their talk, then we will listen to them second part. In that, the suggestions for the movement, how they would like to see that this movement takes shape, what they like to see, that point they would highlight. So the speakers will make opening statement in the beginning, and after some time they will make their concluding statement, concluding points, and that the points we will take it further and give it a shape of a movement. Friends, I would like to highlight one point here. This is not an academic exercise for us. All the, not only the audience and all others here are activists, and we would like to give it a shape of a movement. This particular issue of unemployment and NRA, we would like to give it a shape of a movement. Hence we have this seminar, and it is with utmost seriousness we are organizing. Not only all the words that will come up here, we will take it forward to a massive movement. The last point I would like to make here, AIDYO, as you all very well know, is a youth organization which was built by the inspiration that we got from a veteran Marxist, eminent Marxist thinker, Shivdas Ghosh. Under his inspiration, AIDYO was formed, and since its inception in 1966, it has been taking up youth movement on various issues, economic, social, cultural issues, and it has been leading its movements. Last year, February 2019, there was an All India Delhi march against unemployment. Just before the general elections, we placed the agenda of unemployment before the country, and we wanted that to be addressed, and it came out after a prolonged 4-month campaign. And in fact, whenever the issues of unemployment have been taken up in various parts of the country, be it Kerala or Karnataka or any other place, we see, you can see the kind of reactions from the government. Just recently, a few weeks back, in Madhya Pradesh, there had been lathi charge and the movement that was led by Berojgars here. And UP, a few days back, there had been assault by the police. So when the youth of this country have been demanding their rights, this is the kind of response we get from the government. So nevertheless, this movement has to go on. In this background, this webinar is being held, and this webinar will be definitely will be a leading light. And on the all India level movement of multiple youth organizations that we visualize, this particular webinar will help us to be a kind of a springboard. From here, rather, we can take leap into further movement in the country. With this background, I would like to request our opening speaker, Mr. Bimal Chatterjee from West Bengal or Calcutta. So I request him, sir, you place your points of view on this endemic called unemployment and NRA, and we would like to hear you, sir. So over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Shruti Kumar, for introducing the subject so nicely, point-wise. I have got a few basic premises which you have to proceed with. This national government of ours backed by the party, they have certain principles. And these principles have been not only advocated, but also advertised. The first principle that they have taken is that less government and more governance. Minimum government, maximization of governance. Therefore, they will like to withdraw themselves from the active part which will ensure better employment, greater employment in number. They do not believe in public sector. They do not believe in public sector as against private sector. They think that the public sector is a burden so far as the government and the governance is concerned. They also believe that government's job is not to run industry or the employment opportunity. By running industry or creating industry, this is not the job of the government. That is their belief. They say, by reason of the new education policy of 2020, that only those people who have money, they deserve to be educated. And those who do not have, they are not deserving candidate so far as the education is concerned. They should be totally excluded. And they should be excluded not from the upper level, but they will be excluded from the lower level. That means whenever they will be in the middle school, they should take away, they will go to seek job or somewhere in the private sector. They believe in less education for the poorer section of the society. This is their principle, that they will create illusion after illusion as against reality. Reality, as Dr. Shashi Kumar has said, that each year in the employment sector, 1.3 crores people are coming to have employment. They are unemployed. But the government does not listen to their cry. This is their motive. Their motive is that as government, we shall talk more, work less. And that it is what they are doing. They will make more publicity to create illusion. Illusion not only in the sector or the section of the society where the youth are there, but also everywhere. Everywhere they will create illusion. And constitutionally, they think that federal structure should not be allowed to continue. This federal structure has to be stopped, and we must make it a unitary state. In other words, those state governments should be reduced to a municipality. They will not have any work. They will not have any work of governance. They will only do what the municipalities nowadays are doing. If you do criticize them, they will say you are not a patriot. You do not understand what is called nationalism. When China is aggressing India, you say that, well, we are anti-Indian. If you criticize the government, then the law of sedition will be introduced against you. You will be arrested without showing any opportunity, giving any opportunity to you why you want to say something against the government. So sedition has been taken to be an weapon so far as the present government is concerned. They will use National Security Act, UAPA, and also sedition for the purpose of repression, suppression of your voice. They will curb your freedom of speech and expression. They will grow hatred amongst the various sections of the society, so that one does not get united with the other. This hatred will create division within the society. And they avoid answering questions. Pandemic has been taken to be a shield, and they pray to Almighty that let the pandemic, we shall not be able to process or adopt the democratic governmental functions. We shall not summon, we shall not call the parliament to discuss the issues that are live today. We shall decide on our own, as they did in the case of new education policy 2020. Without referring the matter to the parliament, without referring the matter to the appropriate committee of the parliament, the cabinet itself decides that this is the policy that all India should follow. And no participation from the educationists, no participation of the state government, no consultation. They don't believe in all these democratic processes. If you oppose, then you are anti-national. And if you say something, demand something, then they will say that you are provoked by somebody to demand. This is not your real demand. The whole question is, if a government has got these principles intact, why they should be worried? They need not worry at all. Unemployment. That is why they have started by saying that there will be a national recruitment agency. National recruitment agency will solve problems of all India basis. There will be only one examination, and that examination will serve the purpose of multi-purpose. And along with that, they say there should be a common eligibility test. The whole object is to taking the country towards the dictatorship, a party dictatorship. In these circumstances, the development of industry, whether public sector or private sector, they're least bothered. Only they know that the natural resources of the country will be distributed to the private sector proportionately so that they can make more profit. So far as the government is concerned, the government does not have any function to run the railways, run any industry, nothing of the sort. Therefore, if that is the policy of the present central government, which has been proved not today, but the last since 2014, then we need not worry at all. This is the condition in which we have to survive. Now, we people who are aged, who are more or less retired, we are not bothered about this at all. Who are bothered? Those who are remaining unemployed. They are asking for employment. They say that when you ask for employment, you are anti-national and you should be arrested and you will be put behind the bar. And that is the solution of the entire problem. So I will only suggest that whatever movements the youth are going to take in this country, that will be absolutely a political project. You must unite wholly, sincerely, and then move against this central government. To tell them that what you say is not right. Reality is something else. And therefore, as we do not want to, they have created an illusion, taking the shield against the aggression of China. They will always say that this aggression is beneficial to us. But so long the aggression continues, I shall be able to tell the government, Indian people, that, well, we are the foreigners are coming here. If I am not there at the central government, then you will become Chinese. That is the attitude of the present government. So why worry? Start the movement. In order to, the movement must end in 2024. This movement must end not with a purpose of removing this present government who are creating these illusions and creating this publicity, and they are running the government on the basis of a philosophy, which philosophy does not suit us at all. Our philosophy is completely different, and their philosophy, which took its birth in the year 1925, they say what we say is the history of India. What you say, it is not the history of India. When you say that there should be no hatred between Muslim, Hindu, Christians, and other participants in the religious affair, they will always say that, well, majoritarian government we shall continue to run and you shall continue to suffer. Therefore, only solution in my view, and I suggest, get ready to be united and remove this government from the center power. That's all for now.
Thank you very much, sir. It has been very pleasant, heartening, and inspiring to listen to you. Friends, Mr. Bimal Chatterjee had been a part of very many social movements right from his beginning of the practice as a lawyer, more than 30 years of experience. He has been working in Calcutta High Court as well as Supreme Court, practicing there. And in 2013, he was the Advocate General in West Bengal government and resigned in 2014. In fact, we are very happy to have heard him. And friends, now I would like to move on to another speaker, as I earlier told, who requires no introduction, Mr. Prashant Bhushan. In fact, Mr. Prashant Bhushan is practicing in Supreme Court, and for last 30 years, it's my formal duty to introduce him. That's why I'll just briefly take few minutes. In fact, he was along with probably Mr. Bimal Chatterjee has seen the situation of emergency, and definitely he has a lot of political experience for a long time. Now, at least in the country, he is identified as a torchbearer of free speech, and he can be definitely called a public interest lawyer. And in fact, he called this regime presently that is ruling the country as evil regime that is destroying the very basic value systems that this country stands for. And in fact, he said, he has earlier interviews, he has said our democracy is under threat. Institutions are being strangulated. He has been a voracious leader and writer. In fact, earlier he fought against Congress. Probably then he was branded as anti-Congress. Now he is fighting the present regime. He is being branded as anti-Modi. But all through, let me tell you, friends, he has been a fighter for justice and truth, and we are very happy to have him here. So I request Mr. Prashant Bhushan to place his points of view in the first part, and then we would like to listen to him as suggestions for the furtherance of this movement. Sir, please, over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Shashi Kumar. Yesterday, Justice A.P. Shah, the former Chief Justice of Delhi and Chennai High Courts, made a very important speech in that Justice Suresh Memorial Lecture, in which he pointed out how every regulatory institution created to protect democracy in this country is being destroyed by this government. And most of all, the most important institution which has been created to protect democracy, which is the judiciary. But this is not the only thing that this government is doing. Apart from the attack on all democratic institutions, including institutions like the Election Commission, which has been made into a partisan body, the CAG, which has been rendered virtually useless by being made to follow whatever directions are given to the CAG, by the NHRC, which has been reduced to almost nothing, by the Lokpal, which has also been reduced to nothing. It is an attack on our culture and our civilization by promoting a climate of abuse, lumpenism, mobs which are let loose on the streets on people with the police looking by, and also a culture of just abuse, fake news, hate news, etc. being promoted by the BJP's IT cell and through the media which is under its control. But even more seriously, there is an attack on the very economic integrity of this country. There is an attack on jobs, on economic security of the people. If you see what was promised and what has been achieved, when this government came, the Prime Minister promised that he would create 2 crore jobs every year. What we have seen in the last 6 years is that at least 2 crore jobs per year have been destroyed. Today, the number of people who are jobless are at least 12 crores more than the people who were jobless 6 years ago. The GDP of the economy has come down to minus 24%, something which had never happened in the history of this country earlier. The reason for this is that this government firstly has no interest in either creating jobs or in promoting the economic welfare of the people, but is only interested in creating perception and managing perception through a complicit media about everything being well, etc. And that is why all institutions which were there to have data, to collect data about the state of the economy, including the most important one called the National Sample Survey Organization, they have been destroyed. And the government answered in Parliament recently, just 2 days ago, that it has no data on joblessness, it has no data on migrant workers, it has no data on how many migrant workers died in trains, etc. So they have stopped even creating or keeping data, and they rely only on perception management. This government has singularly removed all financial and economic experts from all bodies that the government used to have. The Planning Commission was dismantled and a Niti Aayog has been created. And this Niti Aayog is, of course, formally headed by the Prime Minister, but the Vice Chairman is one Dr. Rajiv Kumar, who used to be in the Chairman of the Confederation of Indian Industries, who knows he is just a agent of large, big business, and since he has no self-respect, therefore he is willing to say whatever the Prime Minister wants him to say. The demonetization decision was taken by this Prime Minister without consulting any experts at all. Even the Reserve Bank was not consulted. Even the Finance Minister of the government was not consulted. With the result that we had an unprecedented crisis where crores of people had to stand for days in queues to withdraw even small amounts of their own money, which sent the economy into a tailspin. The lockdown due to this COVID was also announced without consulting any experts. In fact, just the previous day before the lockdown, the national lockdown was announced by Mr. Modi, the states and all the central government and the state officials had decided that lockdown would only be done in those hot spots in some parts of the country where COVID had really struck, and not in the whole country. And yet, without consulting anybody at all, the Prime Minister announced a nationwide lockdown. And this lockdown decision has been arbitrarily changed without any logic or rationale, etc. And now it is being continued only to stop public protests from taking place. So therefore, this lockdown of public protests, that is imposition of Section 144 across the country with the excuse of COVID, is going to continue for months altogether. And this lockdown, this kind of totally arbitrary lockdown without planning for what will happen to all these workers who will be rendered without jobs because of the lockdown. Everybody was saying that these workers who have been rendered jobless because of the lockdown, they need to be given direct income or direct cash transfers, not merely being provided with some ration, etc. Even those rations have been discontinued for the migrant workers. But apart from rations, they needed some money, they needed some income, and all the economists were saying that with the economy going for a tailspin, GDP going down by 24%, you need to infuse some money into the economy. And the only way to do that is to have direct cash transfers, at least to these poor people who have lost their jobs. But even that has not been done. The Reserve Bank, first Raghuram Rajan was removed, then the next man who came, Raghuram Rajan, was removed because he didn't agree to the demonetization. The next man was removed because he didn't agree to transfer of the reserves of Reserve Bank to the government, and now they have brought some fellow who has a degree of MA in history. He is heading the Reserve Bank of India. All their economic advisors, some of the credible ones who were appointed initially, they have also been removed because no self-respecting economist is going to stay in a government where the Prime Minister expects them to just say yes, yes to anything that he decides unilaterally, and he is not willing to listen to any economic experts. There has been no recruitment in the public sector, and in fact, this is one of the causes of so much resentment and so much agitation among young people, because they have stopped all public sector recruitment altogether. They are now privatizing large chunks of the public sector. They are making regular jobs into contract jobs at less than half or 1/4 of the normal pay for normal jobs, etc. And therefore, the students and the youth have been very agitated. And when they came out on the streets recently against this lack of employment and lack of government recruitment, in fact, Mr. Modi's birthday was turned into National Unemployment Day, etc. Then they were lathi charged and arrested all over the country because the government says that they violated the lockdown rules. So all democratic rights are being suppressed. The voice of people who have been some of the finest activists in the country, whether those who have been arrested for this Bhima Koregaon, such as Sudha Bharadwaj, Anand Teltumble, etc., some of the finest activists and human rights advocates in this country, they are being arrested just because they speak up against the government and speak up against the human rights violations of this government. Some of the finest activists who supported the anti-CAA protests in Delhi are being arrested under the guise of investigations into the Delhi riots. That investigation, which has itself become a conspiracy in the guise of an investigation, a conspiracy to somehow frame our fine activists who were supporting this unconstitutional who were supporting the protests against this unconstitutional law. They are being arrested under the guise of this Delhi riots. So we have a very, very serious situation in our hands where, as I said, not just democracy, not just our economy and economic security, but the very culture and civilization of this country is in danger. And therefore, we now need a very large national movement, a national awakening against this assault on the very core of our values, of our democracy, of our constitution, of our civilization, of our economy. And I feel that the best issue, or the issue which is likely to have maximum traction at this point of time, is the issue of employment. And we need to now have a national movement for the right to employment. There is no reason why the government should not expand the NRA type of scheme to every adult in the country. The NRA law says that at least one adult in every family will be given employment for at least 100 days in a year. I feel that this has to be expanded to every adult in the country. Every adult needs employment at least minimum wages for at least not just 100 days, but at least 180 days in a year. When the Supreme Court said that the right to life includes the right to live with dignity, one of the very elementary aspects of being able to live with dignity is the right to have employment or at least minimum wages for at least half the year. And I feel that if this movement is taken up by the youth of this country, the right to employment, then I think it can catch up very soon, and it has the potential of becoming a huge national movement. And that is what we need to do in this country, quite apart from raising our voices against this destruction of our institutions, the attack on our culture and values, attack on even critical thinking and scientific temper. All this, of course, attack on our secular values, attack on minorities, attack on activists, attack on freedom of speech. Of course, we need to raise our voices on that, but most of all, we need to most urgently and on a priority, the youth of this country must come together and start a movement. And all political parties, all organizations, and all movements must come together for a movement on the right to employment in this country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. It was very nice when you said this government doesn't have any data. Probably this government doesn't want to keep any data about its misdeeds. Sir, as you mentioned, the number of unemployed has increased by 12 crore rather than 12 crore people getting jobs. Yes, we will have to take it forward, and it's a very important thing. And in fact, this media, which is called very popularly as Godi media, particularly mainstream, many of these channels don't want to highlight these issues concerning economy, GDP, unemployment and employment and farmer suicides. They don't want these issues to come up. As you rightly said, this requires a massive movement, and this particular webinar is one such point from which this movement will definitely gain its momentum. Thank you very much, sir. We would like to hear you some more after some time. And now I would like to move on to Mr. Kalishwaram Raj. He has been a practicing lawyer in civil, criminal and constitutional law for more than 2.5 decades, and he has been very successful in some of cases and issues that he has taken up. One is decriminalization of offense regarding adultery in India. In fact, he has been a contributor to many leading newspapers of India, including the Hindu, New Indian Express, Times of India, Deccan Herald, and the Statesman, and also many other weeklies and fortnightly magazines. Along with that, he has been an active participant in very many social causes, and he has associated himself many of the just issues and movements of the people. So we are very happy to have him here, and I request Mr. Kalishwaram Raj to place his points of view on how he sees the current scenario in the country. Thank you. Over to you, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Dr. Shashi Kumar, Mr. Bimal Chatterjee ji, Prashant Bhushan ji, Raman Japa ji, and Harmad ji. I should first congratulate the organizers for taking up these crucial topics, which are all interconnected with one another. I should therefore place my encomium for All India Democratic Youth Organization for facilitating this deliberation. And I am sure, and I am rather hopeful, that with this meeting of minds, meeting of intellects, we will be able to have the meeting of hopes, meeting of efforts for a better India. Probably every word, every webinar, every piece matters. when it's for justice and when it is spelled in unjust political situation. As Bhushanji and as Bimal Chatterjee indicated, the fundamental law of our country has been facing deep crisis. The core values like federalism, socialism, and secularism are all in crisis. We added these words of secularism and socialism in the preamble of the country's constitution with effect from 3/1/1977 based on the 42nd Constitution Amendment Act. What was the motivation or the immediate reason for the government of that day to do that? We all know history teaches us that. Mrs. Gandhi and her companions wanted to get back or rather regain the lost glory or even the image for that matter by adding these words, since people had the feeling that the country has, or rather the regime of the day had lost the constitutional values or the constitutional impressions. Therefore, these words were sought to be added in the preamble of the Constitution with effect from 3/1/1977. The point, however, is whether just addition of these values in the Constitution, or to put it more precisely, whether the text of the Constitution in itself is a guarantee for ensuring the political rights. The answer can only be in the negative. Even the word socialism, nationalism, republicanism, etc. were the words which even the most alarming dictators in the history used for capturing power and for maintaining it. We know for sure that the Nazis had the word socialism, and same is the lesson emanating from Mussolini's Italy. Therefore, the words do not suffer. Words are insufficient to guarantee the political rights which the Constitution actually wanted us to have forever. Mark Testnet, the jurist, asked a pertinent question as to why the Constitution matters. And he answered it. Testnet answered it by saying that unlike very many of us believe, it is not because of the fact that the Constitution is providing for certain fundamental rights that it matters. On the other hand, he tried to indicate that Constitution matters because it gives a structure to the politics that is capable of maintaining and cherishing the fundamental rights. Therefore, it is the politics that matters. It is the politics which gives you a guarantee for the constitutional values. Coming straight away to the subject, we know for sure that all these topics which is provided for, which is exhibited in the poster, are interconnected with one another. And these are labor, the labor is in crisis. And the question of national recruitment agency in a way poses the question of centralization of labor issues, centralizing the process that provides you the employment, which again involves the questions concerning federalism. Everything is being centralized, and the centralization is a political process which is going on, which destroys very often the basic characteristics of federalism in a vast country like India. Recently, one of my friends were telling me that everybody is behind this NEET examination. We all know that it posed a lot of controversies during the times of pandemic, whether to have the NEET examination or not. Someone was telling that by this centralized process, it has happened that very many poor students in remote parts of the country were subjected to a process of, intense preparation for examination, which could be afforded only by the upper middle class sometimes, or the rich, and not by the poor or the lowest strands of society. Therefore, unlike the times when we were in the college for our pre-degree classes, plus 2 classes, or degree classes, there is a situation now in the country where there is a centralized need which fences out the poor who are not capable of getting a kind of so-called high quality entrance coaching and thereby reaching the rank list. There was a time when the whole process was decentralized, where the students were able to study well and to get the examination results in a superb manner. And based on that, they were able to capture an admission in the medical colleges and engineering colleges. Very many poor people. Now, invisibly, but actually, there has been a centralizing process which had the effect of fencing out the poor, the marginalized, from the process of selection to the professional colleges. And almost, we know that somebody in Tamil Nadu, students have committed suicide. Some student belonging to a middle class in Kerala was given the examination center in Punjab and Haryana in the NEET examination which was just concluded. So there is an analogical situation which is now coming up based on the so-called National Recruitment Agency. Essentially, that has a centralizing tendency, which in turn will adversely affect the poor and the marginalized across the country, especially the rural poor. They may not be having the kind of facilities which they would have been otherwise having if the competitive examinations are held in a decentralized manner with all the kind of varieties and multiplicities which such a process necessarily required to have. Therefore, even the questions of labor have a direct nexus with the core constitutional values, as Mr. Bhushanji was rightly indicating. Now, coming to the question of freedom, when you, as Mr. Bhattacharya rightly said, every dissent has been taken as an offense. In a country where the economy is in the poorest shape, where people agitate for employment, agitate for cash in their hand, agitate for food and other basic amenities, including housing, every objection, every opposition has been taken as a kind of offense, which could be a reason for booking them under the guise of one offense or other. It so happens that government loses the policy on the one side, they create the problems, and when somebody points out the issues, the whistleblower or that finger which underlines the gravity of the problems faced by the country are dealt with by using the machineries of the state. Coming back to the employment issues, of course, even before pandemic, the economy was obviously in bad shape. For the simple reason that the country is governed by a regime which doesn't believe in the ideology of the constitution. When the regime doesn't believe in the ideology of the constitution, and with that regime there, with that government there, it is unwise to be optimist. As Antonio Gramsci was always to say, we need to have the pessimism of the intellect and the optimism of the will. Question of labor is not precisely a technological issue, nor it is a medical issue on account of pandemic. Question of labor, of course, thinkers like Yuval Harari have indicated profusely that in the digital world, there is always a tendency to minimize the human labor, which may have adverse impacts on employment. So may be the case with pandemic also, but I believe strongly for that matter that the question of labor is never a technological question. It is never a medical question. It is a political question. With appropriate policy, which is essentially political and economic. And as we know, the constitution guarantees us not just judicial justice, it is political justice as well, it is social justice, it is economic justice as well. Viewed in that perspective, taking that perspective, if the government has a clear policy on labor, on unemployment, on the unemployment compensation, because unemployment is a menace which is essentially the result of erroneous policies promulgated by the government, which makes the government liable to compensate the victim of that condition. It is a condition. It is an economic condition. Unemployment is an economic condition where the people, the youth are liable to be compensated adequately. We know all what is happening. What happened to the migrant laborers? It was a collective destiny which was shared by the poor across the country. The government didn't have any data, as Prashant Bhushan ji said, despite the fact that we are having a statute of 1979 on migrant workers, interstate workers, which compels the states as well as the center as appropriate governments to have the data of the workmen, of the workers, which mandated the payment of adequate wages, other amenities, compensation and all. Even before the parliament, there is a statement from the government that they don't have the data, which goes against the spirit of this 1979 enactment made by the parliament. This is overall the situation. Now, to conclude, I would say that this interconnection between labor and constitutional values need to be properly assimilated. And we need to have a praxis which combines the theory, the constitutional theory, and the political practice, and thereby leading to a praxis which should snowball into a political movement for regaining the constitutional values and for maintaining them. And we need to have the core values of socialism and secularism taken back to the mainstream of the country. See, for example, we had the Ayodhya verdict. A large portion of the minority suffered the verdict, though we knew that it was not the way in which the matter should have been decided by a process of adjudication in a constitutional court. After telling that it is demolished illegally and by committing an offense it is demolished, what the Supreme Court has done is to ask a secular government, at least conceptually, to make a temple, to construct a temple in the site where the illegal offense, the illegal activity occurred. Still, a large part of the population suffered it. Though the mosque was demolished, though ultimately there was a direction to create a temple on that site, A large population, namely the Muslims of the country, did not make any kind of commendable or rather any reportable offensive agitation on that. They started a peaceful agitation, not when the mosque was demolished or the demolition of the mosque was justified, but when their citizenship was sought to be questioned. And what more evidence for their patriotism is required by the present regime is something beyond speculation and beyond imagination. So this is the situation which the country is now facing. We are living in an unfree world, in an unfree time. And therefore, to quote Albert Camus, and to conclude, I should say that the only way to deal with an unfree world is to become so absolutely free that your very existence is an act of rebellion. I wish everybody the kind of freedom which help us to unite together for a national movement, for constitutional values, which will necessarily include the issues of labor, for ultimately it is for the youth to decide the destiny of the nation and their own destiny. I wish them all success in this regard.
Sir, thank you so much. Thank you very much for some of the very important points that you made. I would like to just recall and the question of centralization of system. The government is centralizing various systems, and in fact, it is moving in a fascistic manner. That's definitely true. Once, when Indira Gandhi, as the Prime Minister of Congress, brought emergency in 1975, then before that she took a garb of socialism came along with. In fact, the nationalization of banks came in that garb. That time, socialism was riding very high in the people's mind. So that's why they wanted the help of socialism, the word socialism, and then Congress wanted to, and in fact, Congress brought in fascism in that point in time. But today, we are seeing a kind of undeclared emergency and destruction of all institutions and total centralization, and fascism can also come in this manner in the name of whipping up religious sentiments so that the people can forget their day-to-day problems. So they want to take the country towards that. So I thank you wholeheartedly from AIDYO for sharing your viewpoints, and we would like to hear some more from you in the next part. And I would like to now move on to Mr. S.R. Hiremat. Friends, he is an eminent person. In fact, he was also participant in the anti-emergency movement in 1975. Being away from India, he tried to organize, and in fact he raised his voice against the destruction of curtailment of fundamental rights at that point in time, and we are very happy to have him. He is a president of a very important organization called Samaja Parivartana Samudaya and operates from Dharwad. Leaving his lucrative job in the United States in 1979, he returned to India to take up very many social issues, and he has remained dedicated for his beliefs. And in fact, he is known as anti-corruption crusader in Karnataka. In fact, you all very well know that because of his work in unearthing this mining scam, which the then Lokayukta at that point in time in Karnataka, Justice Santosh Hegde brought out. In fact, he was a big contributor. In fact, the whole country was shocked to see the amount of scam, quantity of money, wealth involved in that. So we are very happy to have him. And along with that, I would like to remember and tell the audience here, AIDYO is closely associated with a movement that Mr. Hiremat is leading. It is named in Kannada as Janandolanagala Maha Maitri. He is a leading personality there, taking up very many social issues, and more than 20 organizations are involved. So we are a part of it. We're very happy and we carry pride in expressing that. And having said this, I would now request Mr. Hiremat to place his points of view on the current situation in the country. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Shashi Kumar, for your kind words. I would like to first of all compliment my three speakers who have very eloquently and effectively articulated the kind of most degenerate situation that the present regime has brought to this country. I would like to just briefly say that a senior respected journalist in his article put it rather succinctly about the present situation. He said, a creeping authoritarianism, an unapologetic arbitrariness, a cloying personality cult, a willful abuse of power of states' instruments, browbeating of the judiciary, shackling of the media, exulting in money power, and much more. Cumulatively, Indian constitutional democracy stands drained of all its vitality. Friends, even though, as Dr. Shashi Kumar said, we're most actively involved in the United States against the emergency rule in India. And first time we had seen a very powerful, very determined dictator in Mrs. Gandhi in trying to basically make amendments to the constitution that would fundamentally change the character. And she did try. But thanks to that general kind of situation, many persons like Palkiwala, Justice Tarkunde, who was associated with Citizens for Democracy, Prashant Bhushan's father, they all tried to do in a situation where the things were most difficult. Nothing was reported in the press and all that. But friends, when I look upon the present situation, as very well described by the previous three speakers, it is 20 times more dangerous, serious, and worse as far as the present undeclared emergency. And while the people of this country, led by a very charismatic person with a long-standing, great historic record, Jayaprakash Narayan. Incidentally, I am very, very happy that you were one of the very few left parties who supported the Jayaprakash Narayan movement. And that movement played a very central role in restoring our democracy. But today's BJP government, NDA, and most importantly, the Sangh Parivar, with its retrograde and dangerous ideology, have created a very, very similar situation to a fascist regime. And we will have to be well planned, systematically prepare our plans to dismantle this fascist regime. It is going to be the greatest challenge since independence before all of us. And I compliment you that throughout the world, it is the youth who have played the most central and important role because they are on the verge of their life, beginning their life. They are not polluted. They cherish ideals. As Jayaprakash Narayan said in his prison diary, if I were to start all over again, he will follow the same way because only those who have been inspired by ideals larger than themselves have been able to make any dent on history. I think with your very excellent background, because particularly in the last 5-6 years and earlier also, I had great respect the way AIDYO and All India Student Organization and your women's movements and other things you are doing, you are eminently placed to initiate this youth movement in the country. And very wisely, considering the greatest challenge that we are facing since independence, you are now reaching out to all similar-minded friends and organizations and to build a powerful national youth movement, be that in India during the freedom struggle or during JP movement. Particularly in the freedom struggle, as you know, when the entire senior leadership of Congress was put in prison by the British regime, it were people like Jayaprakash Narayan, Ram Manohar Lohia, and many other youth who, according to their own conscience, played a very historic role. That November 1942, escape from the Hazaribagh jail, Jayaprakash Narayan was indeed a hero of the 1942 movement. And the way he drew upon his historical experience and the way Navanirman Samiti of the youth in Gujarat laid the foundation for the awakening of the youth in the 70s, which led to the downfall of that Chimanbai, one of the most corrupt chief ministers, and it spread to Bihar. He provided a great leadership. Friends, we may not have a person of the stature and think Jayaprakash Narayan today, but we all have had our experience of lifetime. And we are also modest, and we will learn from each other and have a collective, wonderful leadership, particularly among the youth, who I believe, just like everywhere else, whether it is Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela, or Mahatma Gandhi and others, the youth were inspired and they brought about the most significant changes in their country and also inspired many others around the world. Now, I would like to say and remind the kind of greatest challenge that we have today from the 1942 movement resolution drafted by Mahatma Gandhi. He says, true building up of Swaraj, that is self-government, consists in the millions of India wholeheartedly working for a constructive program. So when we build the youth movement, the constructive activities as well as the struggle have to be two sides of the coin. He further says, it is our duty always to wipe out our unemployment. And as Bhushan has emphasized and other colleagues, I think unemployment is the most powerful instrument that we can have to build a sustained and effective youth movement in this country. And as you saw, Berozgar, particularly on NDTV India, Desh Ki Baat, Ravish Kumar ke saath, he is one of those very rare journalists today presenting the situation and the reality of the country before the nation. And people are up in arms. They're all revolting against the government because all those jobs that they promised, which are all false jobs. But even today, in most sectors, there are so many vacant jobs. For example, with your friends, just 2 hours ago, we talked about the so-called guest lecturers. And you see the UGC scale of the university professors, the faculty members, and you see these guest lectures, a meager 7,500. And when Supreme Court talked about right to life is a right to a dignified life, does that provide the minimum things? And I compliment you, friends, that you have most carefully analyzed the realities at the ground level and are fighting. And I was also very honored to work with Chandrasekhar Methi of your organization in Mysore for the migrant laborers, where the migrant laborers were not only from UP and Bihar far off, but they were also from Gulbarga, Raichur, and other deprived places in this country. Now, I would like to continue that it is our duty always to wipe out our unemployment, to bridge the gulf between the rich and the poor. Now, you are seeing that it is galloping the gap between the rich and the poor. Even Thomas Piketty of the Paris School of Economics, in his most masterly things, studied 100 years of the hard data of several countries in the world. And he said, this economic system that is followed is a faulty system and it is increasing the gap between the rich and the poor in a major way. And our present governments, just like now they are going to be probably number one, surpassing US in the COVID kinds of crisis, they will be probably galloping this, because one of the Financial Express of London, he wrote a book about the billionaires in this country. It's most pathetic, the kind of abuse of power, the kind of vulgar display of wealth in a country where many people, we saw 100 million people, migrant laborers, and their situation. Most fortunately, this media, which has become a propaganda machine for the government, was to bring the realities of the migrant laborers. And when our other organ of the state, Supreme Court, which in the 80s, the 90s, and the others, tried to uphold the rights of the poor, rights of the downtrodden, now is shying away from its constitutional duty. Justice Madan Lokur, one of those 4 judges of the Supreme Court, who came out in the historic, unprecedented first press conference, clearly said that our democracy is in danger. That same Justice Madan Lokur writes in a very thorough, excellent article saying that he would give F grade to our Supreme Court for mishandling, not doing any justice in the case of migrant laborers. When our Prime Minister, as the saying goes, only those who don't learn from history are condemned to repeat the disastrous demonetization, which did not meet any of the 3 objectives of black money, the Nakli notes, and the terrorism. Nothing it did. All it did was to take away jobs of millions and millions of people in this country in the most draconian manner. And he did not learn anything from history. With only 4-hour notice, he gave, in my mind, around the world, one of the worst lockdowns in the most thoughtless manner. And that was the root cause of the 100 million migrant laborers crisis that we saw. When near Aurangabad, 16 people died. And one young lady, she had to take her father, when she had only 1,000 rupees, buy a bicycle and take his sick father all the way from Haryana to Bihar. And in Muzaffarpur railway station, it was the most heart-rending scene that a child is trying to wake up her mother who is dead, migrant laborer. So friends, the situation is most serious, and all the 3 speakers have said. But I am glad that you have gone after analyzing this situation and trying to create a movement. This is very, very important. Now, I would just like to compliment what others said. Incidentally, I'm sorry that I left it there. To bridge the gap between the rich and the poor. Then he says to banish communal strife. These people are deliberately, willfully planting the seeds of hatred. And as already other speakers have said, I need not elaborate on that. To exercise the demon of untouchability. And as you say, the way the present political parties, most parties, this caste system, instead of abolishing it, they are trying to firm it up. To reform the dacoits means armed bandits and save the people from them. I'm sorry to say, a respected national organization, ADR, Association for Democratic Reforms, has clearly delineated in its reports how from 20% persons with criminal background in the parliament and all that went to 25, 30, 35, now 42%. And the way the corruption and all the scams that they are doing, they have become in many ways, I'm not talking about all of them, but this high percentage of them, enemies of the people. If scores of people do not take a living interest in this nation building work, freedom must remain a dream. Now, I believe 3 most vital things are in danger in today's situation. One is our constitution and its values. Friends, our freedom struggle was centered around freedom from the colonial rules. But a long centuries old, from Buddha 2,500 years ago to Basava, the great Sharana tradition in the 12th century in Karnataka, who not only dealt with firmly remove the caste system, but also gender equality and great respect for manual work. Kahikave Kailasha was their slogan. That Buddha, Basava and Ambedkar, that long movement of equality and long movement for freedom and long movement for respect for the working people, be that land to the tiller, be that fair wage to the workers, and participation in management, so on and so forth. Now, all those things have remained a dream. All governments, I am sorry to say, since independence, even though here and there some good things have been done, but by and large, the vast sections of our population who are downtrodden, who are deprived of the basic necessities of life and the rights, they have had progressively a worse day. Our constitution in Article 39 says that no wealth or income should be concentrated in the fewer hands. Further, they go to say that the livelihood thing should be so spread out that it should serve the maximum people of the maximum. And what exactly the two UPA has done and the others have done. But even in this situation, once we have the constitution and the rights, we can do a great deal. From 1984, along the country, including West Bengal and many other states, we fought for right to work. And we said as the first step, you must have an employment guarantee scheme. And when we work on steadily, like you friends are working at the grassroots, eventually that Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Scheme in Karnataka, in many others, the media was reporting that when there is great unemployment, the persons who have done PhDs, master's degrees, and graduations, they are now working on the field. And I think it is the dignity of labor we should respect, and such things have helped. I'm not saying that the government has done anything. First business we should do is what all the vacancies are there, they must be filled. These people talk, as one of the speakers said, go back in history and create glorious days and all that. And I think if they want to become a Vishwaguru and all that, and how many guest lecturers are there in primary school, high school, and PU colleges, and even in the universities, I think they must all be filled. We must do that. Similarly, in many other fields, many jobs are not being filled, either by the central government or by the thing. The so-called NRA, National Recruitment Agency, again, Ravish Kumar was bringing back and back what were the promises of Piyush Goyal and others, and what is the actual reality. Those two don't simply match. And as you know, in 2014, this Prime Minister, with such firmness said, we are not going to privatize the railways. Now, already things are at hand. And the way, most irresponsibly, that to unbecoming of person holding the highest position of Prime Minister, on 31st December 2014, he brought the draconian thing against the farmers. But farmers of this country rose like one person. It took time for mobilization. And even they prorogued the Rajya Sabha to renew that draconian ordinance. Finally, they had to take back. So these small battles that have taken place, we must learn from them, and we must mobilize the youth, and we must take on. Coming back to the Constitution and its values, now it was to the genius of Dr. Ambedkar.
Sir, excuse me, sir.
Sir,
just a moment. Sir, just a moment, sir, if I may intervene. We would like to listen to you a little more again. Just 5 minutes if you can give a break. And then you can continue again in the second half if you don't mind.
Sure. Sure.
Yes, sir.
So what I will just complete this thought. It is not only the constitution, it's the values that are at stake, but also the idea of India that was evolved during the freedom movement, and also the social ethics which have taken a big beating, and the human values that have been cherished by our Sharanas, the sons, the Sufi sons and all that. But we have to look in today's constitutional atmosphere and bring them to the fore. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for your wonderful points. Just I would like to recall your concern for the movement, youth movement in the country centering around unemployment. We feel with our experience, the movements throw up the leadership. Yes, true, we don't have a leader like Jayaprakash Narayan today, but leaders, movements will find its own leadership.
Absolutely.
That is what the history of people's movement in the world has proved. And also, you rightly said, the mindless lockdown brought in misery for migrant laborers, as the from on the other side, rather it openly showed up the ugly underbelly of India, where it had hidden this migrant crisis, migrant problems. Rather, this mindless lockdown exposed it much more, so that the real people's movement can take off from here. So, thanking you very much. I now request our next speaker, uh, Ramanjanappa Aldalli, our national president of AIDYO, to present his points of view on the subject matter. Over to you, sir.
First of all, I congratulate all the veterans who are the speakers in this webinar as panel speakers for being the part of this discussion. And also I congratulate many more veterans and organizers, and many fighting youths are there in this discussion. I too congratulate them for being part of this discussion. And secondly, the points which have been placed now before me by the veteran speakers from our organization, All India Democratic Youth Organization, we respect your views, sir. But again, while conceiving this problem of unemployment or finding the solution, we may have certain differences. We respect your views, certainly, but definitely we'll have to sort out many things in course of our movement or in the future conversations. But one thing is sure, the people who have gathered here today, we are all honest, we are all having the serious concerns towards society, we are having a sort of deep urge to bring change in society. That commonness is there. With that commonness and common approach, let us proceed further. So I also request you to be part of our future movement against the unemployment issue. So now I like to place my points here. I like to term what Mr. Bimal Chatterjee has coined as illusion the present regime has created among the youth or in the society. I call it in a different word. They have created a sort of myths actually. Nobody in the country before 2014, either the youths of this country or the citizens, extended any invitation to Sri Narendra Modi to occupy the Prime Minister post. In fact, Mr. Narendra Modi, he himself imposed as Prime Ministerial candidate. Our people's memory is actually very short. If you can remember the past events, you can know that Mr. Modi pressurized the BJP leadership that they should declare him as Prime Ministerial candidate, even sidelining his own political guru L.K. Advani. After taking the assurance from the BJP leadership only, he attended the Goa BJP National Executive Committee meeting. So the point is, nobody expected or requested Modi to take the leadership of this country. The Modi himself imposed his leadership. That is one fact. Secondly, after declaring him as Prime Ministerial candidate, he went around the country addressing hundreds of election meetings, spending thousands of crores of rupees. There he assured to the youth of this country that he is going to create 2 crore job every year annually. He assured the public of this country that he is going to bring back black money. He assured the country that he is going to put behind the bar all the corrupt people. But what happened? Nothing has happened. Nothing is implemented. While addressing those meetings, he was telling about Manmohan Singh that Manmohan Singh is Mauni Manmohan. Yes, Prime Minister Mr. Modi, you called Manmohan as Mauni Manmohan, but now why you are not giving any answer, but you are replacing the same position as Mauni Modi? Please answer to the country. We should ask this question to Mr. Modi. And secondly, if you look at the economic situation or the burning problems of the country, you will see that when the UPA second regime was exited, the central government's total debt was 52 lakh crore. Now, in the last 6 years, Modi government increased that amount to 101 lakh crore. That means in the last 60 or so years, the previous governments made 52 lakh crores loan. But in the last 6 years, Modi could make 51 lakh crore loan. This is the reality. So how good our economy you can imagine. Then in the last 6 years, what happened? The asset of Ambani in the last 6 years, 2014 to 2019, from 1.68 lakh crores to Ambani's asset, from 1.68 lakh crores to it has become 3.65 lakh crore. Gautam Adani's asset has become increased from 50 lakh crores to 1.1 lakh crore. The number of billionaires during 2014 to 2018, it has become double. It has reached to 119 from almost 65 to 70. So you can imagine who benefited out of the Modi government's rule. The multinational corporations and very few capitalist families got benefit out of the Modi regime. The Modi who toured entire world innovating investments, and the BJP governments which organized global investment meets. I don't know how much investments they invited, but definitely they gifted thousands of acres of land to the capitalist families. They gifted thousands of crores as tax benefits. They gifted in the form of non-performing assets as they did not pay the bank loans back. So this is the rule of Modi regime. I need not explain about the unemployment situation. It is self-explanatory. Many articles are coming and government is not releasing any correct data. So now the core issue before the nation is the unemployment problem. So the All India Democratic Youth Organization, which is already in the movement, it is developing movement taking this issue. Now we are initiating the higher form of movement involving many more left and democratic youth organizations. So here, friends, I like to bring to notice to the panelists and the general youth who are participating in this discussion, let us not try to engage, let us not try to confuse our views, because whenever crisis occurs in the country, whenever the possibility of youth movement will be coming, the governments will be distracting or diverting the attention of the people. Now, the BJP government is bringing to the fore the issue of religion or the issue of Indo-China war, the Indo-Pak war. Here I like to bring to the notice that the interest of the unemployment youth in India is same with the interest of the unemployment youth in Pakistan. The interest of the unemployment youth in India is same with the interest of the unemployment in China. Now in the mainstream media, it has been projected that China, the communist country, is trying to invade India. This is not fact. What I am trying to tell is China is no more a communist or no more a socialist. China, it has turned its economy into capitalist mode long back. China is now a capitalist country, not only capitalist, it is imperialist country. It is having the all aspirations like other imperialist country to expand its market arena. So it is competing with USA, same with other European imperialist countries. So there is no question of terming China as socialist. Even the people in China, they are facing unemployment problem, they are facing other problems, they are raising their voice, building movement against China's government. This is our view. Same way, in Pakistan also, students and youths are coming in the streets and they are demanding employment from their rulers, their governments. Even Pakistani government showing its fingers towards India and misdirecting the Pakistani youths. So here I want to tell that here the interest of the unemployment youths in India, China, Pakistan is same. The interest of the rulers of India, Pakistan and is same. So that is why I think we should demand the government of India that you declare war not against China. You declare war not against Pakistan. You declare war against unemployment. If we don't want to declare war against unemployment, I think we, the youths of this country, we should declare war against the lies, against the spreading of the illusions. The truth seekers of this country who are honest and who are there to fight against injustice, we should declare our war against these injustices, against these lies. That is why the war cry of this hour is we should declare war against unemployment. So without demolishing the existing myths, we cannot establish truth. So in this background, I think the youth of this country to be united on the basis of correct ideology and correct ideas. So in this background, what I am trying to tell is definitely now the youths are understanding the reality. Not only in the September 17th, on the day of Narendra Modi's birthday, the anti-unemployment, that means demand for employment, the voice for demand for employment was more than the likes of the Modi birthday wishes. Same way, even before that, when two Mann Ki Baat speeches were there from Mr. Modi, more dislikes were there than the likes. So now the situation is turning around. Now the responsibility lies with us that in this situation, the so-called opposition parties which were there in power and implemented the same policies, we need not allow them to participate in this movement again to grab the power by hook or crook. So movement should be developed on the basis of real demand. That's why our demand should be, or our vision should be, not to replace the chair of prime ministership, not the replacement of the just ruling party. We should demand, we should visualize the replacement of the economic policies. That should be our agenda, that should be our slogan. That is why, keeping this in mind, let there be intense discussions, let there be intense debates, let there be intense polemics. But after having all these things, we should arrive at correct understanding to fight against this unemployment issue and to demand correct, correct policies to the government, and whoever comes to the power, our demand should be in that correct line. So keeping these things in view, I think we should move forward. So I request all to be with us in the future movement. This is all.
Thank you very much, Comrade Ramanjana Paldalli for placing your points of view on the current situation. And it was very important that you introduced a class angularity into understanding the situation of unemployment in the country. And I think it is very aptly and rightly said, the common people of whole world don't have boundaries. I think that's a very important proposition that you have made, and it will be helping us to take this movement forward deep into the people. And of course, declaration of war against unemployment and illusions and myths is a need of the time when mass media and even social media is completely filled with the campaign of the rightists, particularly by the BJP's IT cell. Probably we should expose day in and day out, make a lot of efforts in exposing this falsehood and myths and the hate campaign of the hate mongers. Thank you very much. Now, friends, we have already overshot our time, but still we need to hear and we have to logically take this discussion to a reasonable and logical end, and that would be to seek the suggestion from the panelists as to, after having heard all the other speakers, each speaker, we request them to place their points of view on how to further this movement. What about their suggestions, whatever their suggestions about the furtherance of this movement. I request each speaker to take briefly a minute or two. Please don't mind. I'm requesting you a minute or two to finally make your concluding points on further regarding the furtherance of the movement. Thank you. I request Mr. Bimal Chatterjee to quickly make his point. Sir, over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I must congratulate the national president of AIDYO. The way he expressed his view on the subject was excellent, according to me. Thank you very much and congratulations to you. I have got 3-4 submissions before the listeners, the audience. First, I apprehend there is a likelihood of a series of divestment of national businesses or national institutions like Ministry of Railways, then Life Insurance Corporation, General Insurance Corporation, all these public sector undertakings. The present government are likely to divest to the private sector. This has to be prevented. We have to organize seminars like this one, meetings, movements in hundreds and thousands, so that we are successful in preventing this divestment by the government, which is very imminent in my view. I apprehend that. And I hope that I am not wrong. That is my first submission. The second submission is that we should also equally move against curb and repression of freedom of speech in this country. Because once they can write on the fear psychosis, if they can create a fear psychosis in the minds of the people at large, then it will be very difficult for the people to express their views. They will not be able to express their views freely. Therefore, I suggest that we should also move against this repression or suppression of freedom of speech and expression. Immediately, there should not be any difficulty with regard to that. And I believe that some of the movements have already been started. The third submission of mine would be before this audience that after all, although the national president has said that we don't want to replace Mr. Modi or Manmohan Singh like that, it is not a question of replacement of a person in the central government or in the administration. We want the replacement of a national policy altogether. That's very fine. And I support his view. To have this object achieved, what is required is a political project, which I have emphasized in my earlier version of my speech. It's absolutely a political project. And this political project cannot be successful, in my view, without the unity. And this unity is required among the people who are like-minded. Who are like-minded, they must be united to see the point of the national president of AIDIO. He has succinctly made his point very clear, and I support that wholeheartedly. The entire thing is required to be removed. The policy has to be removed and the new policy planted. And in order to do so, we must remove the government as well. If we cannot remove the government, the policy cannot be changed, cannot be replaced. These are my three suggestions to the audience. Audience will consider this, and I'm sure that further movements will be organized by AIDYO, and I congratulate them for this present webinar. Thank you very much.
We express our wholehearted thanks for your participation as also your wonderful points of vision for the future of this movement, sir. And you, in fact, you very organized manner you placed your points of view. Those 3 points will be seriously considered for furtherance of this movement, sir. Thank you very much for having participated in this seminar. Now, I would like to move on to Mr. Prashant Bhushan for his concluding remarks. Do we have Mr. Prashant Bhushan? Friends, there seems to be some technical snag or some engagement must have come. Shall I now move on to thanking Mr. Prashant Bhushan for having participated in this movement? I would like to move on to Mr. Kaliswaram Raj for his concluding points. Sir, over to you, sir.
Thank you once more, Mr. Dr. Shashi Kumar. I have only a single point to make in conclusion. The issue is rather clear, or rather the issues are clear. It's multiple. But the solution lies, as it has already been indicated, in a pupils movement. But how do you give shape to a movement is a significant question. We don't have a formal, rigorous, vibrant opposition in the country, which in turn has facilitated the kind of anti-pupil policies and anti-pupil strategies by the existing regime to such an alarming level. Lack of strong opposition in itself is a political and constitutional crisis. Therefore, I should say the one cardinal difference, unlike what we had during the emergency, the national emergency during the late 70s was essentially at the behest of a person, a leader called Mrs. Gandhi and company, whereas now it is, as we know, at the behest of a cadre party or a cadre organization called the Rashtriya Swayam Sevak Sangh, which has its network across the country. Therefore, when we talk about a radical opposition, we need to think about a viable, possible alternative, which doesn't happen with the formal, established opposition in the country, which includes the old UAPA, the Congress, etc. The organized left also is unable to address the issues relating to the labor, the agriculture, the farmers issue, etc. But at the same time, as it has been indicated during the anti-CAA NRC movement, there is a strong unorganized political wing which is coming up to take up the issues. Even without the help of a formal political movement, I think in the context of labor issues, the organizations, we should rather try to make use of the movement which is shaping, the movement which is structuring itself, dehorse the established political parties in the civil societies level and in the informal level, for which I think the kind of digital facilities which we are having now, even this webinar is an epitome of that. Viewed so, there has to be a strategy which makes use of the digital platforms. We should try to use the right thinking people across the country and thereby to make a network of right thinking people and democratic organizations, for which the democratic youth organization can definitely take a leadership role, a proactive role, which in turn will facilitate a network which will be able to question, as we have seen during the Anti-Citizenship Amendment Act and Anti-National Register for Citizens movement. That kind of movement is something which can clearly give strong message to the ruling regime. And in the context of labor also, I would suggest a movement which materializes the formation of that kind of pupils network across the country by taking lessons from the anti-CAA NRC movement in India. That's my basic suggestion which I wanted to make by way of this conclusion. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, sir. We heard Mr. Kaliswaran Raj, and we also felt his concern for the situation that is going on in the country, as well as his ideas about what should be done in future. You rightly said when you mentioned this point of there is a lack of opposition, true opposition in the country. Probably that true opposition will have to emerge as people's opposition. That is what you intended, and we have seriously noted that point. Here I would like to mention, friends, in this point there is hidden one desire that over and above these existing so-called big political parties, there is something called people's power, and that people's power probably has to take shape. We all very well know in 1974, when Navanirbman movement broke out, as one of our eminent speaker mentioned about it in Gujarat, it was a students' movement. It was a youth movement. Major demands were education for all and employment for all, and there was a voice against corruption in the country under Indira Gandhi's rule. And that snowballed and took serious shape into a powerful mass movement in the country. Probably it ended with removing the whole set of government, the people who were ruling us. Though it did not achieve the purposes that it started for, but still the correct leadership with the correct ideology, if it can give a shape for such a people's movement, we have an example that we can achieve our true ends. And thank you very much, sir, for your participation as well as your wonderful points of view, which will definitely help us in shape a movement here. And now I would like to move on to Mr. Hiremat. We have held him for long, and we would like to hear the final words from Mr. Hiremat as to how he visualizes the future of this movement. Sir, over to you, sir.
My strong view is that, as you know, I am also national president of Citizens for Democracy. And from our long experience, we find that the common people of this country haven't inculcated the democratic values. I think it is an extremely great opportunity. So, how we strategize, how we bring the different groups in this national youth movement is going to be very, very crucial. First thing that I would suggest is that, as you mentioned in the beginning, this Janandolangala Mahamaitri that we have done in Karnataka, over 20 different groups, from Dalit groups to farmers and others, we should see that among these movements who are already involved, the youth among them, both urban and more importantly rural, also should be chosen and trained effectively, because one of the things is the clarity of the understanding of various dimensions of today's very grave situation and how to deal with it. This kind of exercise, I think, should be done from all over the country. That is my first suggestion. Second is, while I fully agree with the analysis and recommendation of Mr. Ramanjanappa, I would think to take a holistic view, because it is not only necessary to restructure in order our focus on employment on the economic situation. Equally, more seriously important in my mind is the political and other aspects. You see, today, those who take oath on the constitutions are destroying the democratic institutions. So people have to be trained what kind of people we should choose and how. I think this youth movement should have a very clarity, like Jayaprakash Narayan JP has done in the beginning. Later on, he took up the challenge of Indira Gandhi to go political. That is a different situation, but we need to really do that. And as Gandhiji used to say, be the change you want to see in the society. So the untouchability, the increasing sort, I think, is extremely dangerous to our constitutional values. So I think we need to work on the social aspects. We need to revisit the Annihilation of Caste written by Baba Saheb Ambedkar, and learn from how the Indian National Congress on one hand, Indian Social Congress, those started together. Tilak said he will burn the pandal of this. So how these so-called leaders that will emerge from this movement, the other people will also have to keep check, because you have to develop a holistic view. And finally, from the political viewpoint, as we emphasize on migrant laborers, Adivasis, Dalits and others at the ground level, we must also uphold the public intellectuals like Dr. Tirthumbe, like Prashant Bhushan, like Sudha Bharadwaj, and so many others, including Kafil Khan. And the Allahabad High Court cut them to their size, put them in their place, that DM who selectively read his speech at the Aligarh Muslim University and distorted to put him in the jail, and how the Allahabad court has, passed very serious structures. So in other words, we should have a holistic approach, and we should all create millions of people who take up the cause of nation building. I think, as we have called in CFD, Azadi se Swaraj, which we did from Quit India Day, August 9th to 15th. Now we are again doing October 2nd, Gandhi Jayanti, Jayaprakash Narayan Jayanti on October 11th. I think we should all come together and take a holistic view of all the different things. Even though we prioritize unemployment as the number one question, there is no question about that. But about building movements, building the cadres is extremely crucial, because in every movement that we have succeeded, whether Tungabhadra pollution or 75,000 acres of common lands, or the mining, or the timber mafia, like Gandhi did in, Salt Satyagraha, he took his entire ashram. So I think we need to move very systematically, very carefully, build these citizens who are aware, who also see the immense strength in building organizations. That alone will change. The short-term thing, I could not agree with our ex-Advocate General of West Bengal. We must defeat these Sangh Parivar forces in 2024 and cut them to their size and put them in their place. That must also be a very high priority. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for your inspiring words. In fact, what you mentioned as democratization of our society, taking
Exactly.
a holistic view, I think it is the need of the time. We believe in changing the whole social mental makeup through
Correct.
democratic mass movements. That is to be done. And I thank you very much for your points of view. And also, we would consider your points of view very seriously. And then now I finally move on to Comrade Ramanjanappa Aldalli to place his concluding points.
Appeal is the most unfortunate thing is the RSS, which did not participate in the Indian freedom movement, now its political prop BJP is at the helm of the political affairs. On the one side, the Congress, though which led the freedom movement, but it very meticulously sidelined the other revolutionary streams and other rationalist forces during that period. Actually, we know very well that Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, even before 1935, he termed Congress as the Congress has become the tool of the Bombay Ahmedabad mill owners. Netaji himself termed Congress then itself like this. Even during 1939 Tripuri Congress, Netaji termed Congress leaders as you are more attached to your ministerial and parliamentarian positions than developing militant movements. This was the words of Netaji. Now, even in the post-independence period also, whatever policies were laid down in the country, it was from the Congress. Now, those very policies are continued by the other political parties, and BJP and Narendra Modi is fostering those, fastly implementing those policies. So that is why my appeal is either non-BJP and non-Congress left and democratic forces are to be united. I think here maybe some differences may be there, but the people who are genuine and they're concerned about the unemployment problem and the future of the country, I think we should unite all. That's why I told before this, let there be exchanges, let there be polemics regarding this. We have already extended our invitation to other left youth organizations primarily, and we are also searching other democratic minded organizations and persons also. So seeing all those things in future, I think once we will have to sit together and check out the course of action. I hope the situation is alarm, situation is ripe to develop the militant youth movement. So let us move forward with this approach. This is all.
Thank you, comrade, for your guidance for this movement, how to take it forward, in what manner it should be taken forward. Friends, those of us who are watching this program and are with us for last 2 hours, I would like to congratulate all of you for having participated these wonderful deliberations. In fact, we have heard views from different points of view, and there are a lot of lessons to be drawn from this, and the movement should be shaped up. It is true that there is gloom all over because of the current situation and the fascistic forces that are ruling the country. There is definitely gloom all over, but there are silver lines too, because this government, despite its media power, despite its money power, is finding it extremely difficult to push forward anti-people measures that we must note. Because you should have definitely seen the way the government had to wait for a pandemic like this COVID-19 pandemic to bring in so many reforms that were waiting right from UPA days, like labor reforms, so many reforms in our laws to bring down the hard-earned rights, to remove the hard-earned rights of the people, or even the agrarian reforms. Even yesterday, the government, the way it placed three bills which will destroy the livelihood of millions and millions of farmers. In fact, it had to wait for a period of pandemic when people cannot protest and organize their collective voice. So the government is scared, that we must know, and there is definitely hope for the future, that there is a possibility of a massive movement that can will demand the authorities, the ruling powers, to address the people's issues. So let this webinar be a very important starting point for a nationwide movement, and so many other points concerning the future of the movement is also discussed, and those points have been noted very seriously by all the listeners as well as the leaders of the organization. These things will be taken forward, and a movement will be shaped up. And now I formally present my vote of thanks to all the participants, panel of speakers. I would like to express the heartfelt gratitude to Mr. Bimal Chatterjee, a veteran legal luminary of the country who has stood by just causes. We express our heartfelt thanks for having given his time and been a part of this webinar and placing his points of view. We also would like to express our deep respect and thanks to Mr. Prashant Bhushan, who placed his points of view, and midway he had to leave because of his engagements, and we express our heartfelt thanks to him for having participated in the movement, in the webinar. And also we would like to express our deep gratitude to Mr. Kaliswaram Raj for having extracted time, and he has been there for last 2 hours 11 minutes with us, and we thank you very much, not only for having expressed your points of view and having participated. Your participation itself is a matter of inspiration. Thank you very much, sir. And also we would like to express our deep respects and thanks to Mr. S.R. Hiremat, who has been a close associate with AIDYO as well as the People's Movement, for his points of view as well as his specific points for the movement. We would seriously consider it, sir, and we would like to thank you. As well as I would like to express thanks from the All India Committee, our president, having Comrade Ramanjana Paldalli, for having participated in the webinar and has expressed his views. With this, we would like to end the seminar and expressing our deep point of gratitude that so many people in the audience were there with us, and it is definitely a matter of inspiration that so many viewed this program, and many more will definitely see. I request all of you to like the Facebook page of AIDYO AAC, as well as spread this for the views that have come in the webinar. Please spread them both digitally, both virtually, as well as while you meet people physically. Please convey these points of view. Let there be a powerful youth movement in this country. Thank you all.